to the Whatnots Reactor Core number 118. We have some more Yellowjackets Season 2 to talk about today. My name is Kyle Springer. I am joined by Melissa Wilkinson. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm okay. How's your weekend been?
Weekend has been good. Fast and the Furious, or Fast 10 came out and got to go watch that. We got to go watch a real slow movie for the review show where they're driving cars real slow. The Wages of Fire. It's been a good weekend so far, and I watched both of these Yellowjackets episodes back to back.
Ooh,
So
interesting move.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited indeed. But yeah. We have 2 more episodes of Yellowjackets to talk about, specifically episodes 7 and 8. I guess I can say at the top here, I was expecting there to be 2 more episodes after this.
Yes.
I was kind of unsure exactly how long the season would be. I had seen some places say it's going to be 9 episodes. Some places say it's going to be 10. But regardless, I think what that means for us is that instead of coming back in 2 weeks when those what we thought 2 episodes were going to be, we'll be back next week with the finale and maybe any kind of remaining lingering questions that still still remain. But episodes 7 and 8. Wild stuff continues to happen. I shouldn't be surprised at this point.
Right. It's never like nice normal one. Real chill week for Yellowjackets.
Yeah. It's like, I was a filler episode, right? No. No.
Girls collect firewood for 55 straight minutes.
What did you think of these 2? Just kind of top level general thoughts.
Before you said you hadn't watched episode 7 yet at all, I gave you one little tease in that I said, I think the end of episode 7 is more harrowing to me than the end to episode 6.
There you go. Yeah.
They're doing some stuff. There's some real interesting stuff to chew on right now. Mysteries that still exist. New mysteries have developed. We're still making new mysteries. Where's Crystal?
Yes. Exactly. Who knows? Things. Yeah. Man, I. This is why I'm so hooked on this show. All of the mysteries mixed in there with the relationships between the characters and how they change and grow is there's just a lot to unpack and stuff like that. Yeah, I really enjoyed these 2 episodes. What's interesting to me is, I think there's mysteries starting to come up that it's not that I just don't know the answers to, but I also don't know the purpose of them.
Yes.
Or if there even is a purpose of them. Because episode 7 opens up with another different version of the opening theme song. And I don't know if I have enough evidence either way to support any kind of theory, if that has some kind of meaning behind it or not, or if it's just like, what if we get other bands to do different versions to bring some more flavor, right?
Yeah, just like let's honor 90s artists. Let's bring in Alanis Morissette. Let's bring in, not a 90s artist, but there's a lot of Florence and the Machine this season.
Yeah.
I know she did a cover of No Doubt's Just a Girl that has been out. I've already listened to it, but it hasn't come up in the show yet. They must be saving that for the finale.
Maybe. Or did you know how sometimes they do songs on the soundtrack that aren't necessarily like the original score? It's not really in the movie, but it's like
this is
stuff
very
that inspired it.
This is very cinematic, though. This has got to actually make its way into the show at some point. They are just girls. The text is there.
Indeed. And in fact, a lot of the songs that they do pick in the show speak directly to what just happened. And there's some stuff here, little spoilers already for episode 8, but when Javi dies at the end, like the song that plays is like trapped under the ice, just fallen, but like something like that. Like it says exactly what happened.
Truly, the world is a vampire.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed these a lot. I cannot wait for the season finale because again,
Mm,
I don't know what like the finale moment is going to be. You know how some shows you can
yes.
kind of be like, oh, they're gearing up for a
Yeah.
confrontation between this character and that character or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now now that the baby has been born and died, that seemed like the major arc for the season. I and I don't know if we are deep enough into winter that the finale could be the beginning of spring. I don't
Yeah,
it's really hard to get a handle on the timing of things like that. So I don't know specifically what we are building towards in the finale except it's time to eat Javi.
yeah. I'm wondering if it is going to be, yeah, that they do discover that little secret place that I assume Javi
Yes.
survived
Oh yeah.
in, that the coach is
Maybe they
now at.
move. Maybe that's it. Like how Lost had we live on the beach. Now we have found caves. The caves seem
Now we've found
safer.
Dharmaville. Yeah,
Right, right. That change of setting. Maybe we didn't get that good of a look at the caves. Maybe it can't fit everybody. Maybe that's part of the conflict is who's going to get to go to that little underground cave and who has to
but
stay back at the cabin.
it also seems there's multiple locations that have stuff like
Mm,
that. So
that's true.
again, we've kind of
Again, but another split of the
theorized
party.
it could be that they split up, or like we've theorized in the past, like maybe that's just the entrance to like a deeper like cave system or like natural hot spring kind of location, right, where there's some water flowing
Mm,
underground, and that these trees happen to be like along that path. These trees that don't have the snow on them and are oddly like, how
yeah.
are you not covered in snow right now? This is weird.
Yes.
But I'm even wondering if they are going to kind of like finalize the ritual of like how
Mm.
they pick. We saw the starts of that in these episodes here. If they're gonna finalize that ritual, there might be a change of location or like an alternate location. Yeah, in case the group splits up.
Mm.
I think we've started to get the introduction of another character that might have a little more in season 3 to do, of the younger girls. Pink Hat girl, I don't know who exactly she
I
is or
don't
what
know
her
all their
name is.
names. I'm like,
She's
I'm gonna
been
pick
there.
one. They have been there, yes, but I know the faces. I know some names. I have trouble matching up all the faces and the names. I'm like, there's
Yeah,
Maury. Olivia's another dark-haired girl. We saw her earlier in the season. We haven't seen much of her. My strategy's been pick one to latch onto them, and I'm like, Akila's my girl.
well,
I'm on team.
we've had
I'm gonna pay attention to what Akila's doing.
we've had the three like new main girls with
Mm,
Crystal, Aquila, and Mari, and I think our criticism at the start of this season was like they just kind of are there. I don't really remember if they were there in season 1, as in like those actors were cast or not.
mhm.
But it just seemed abrupt that they introduced them. So I like that there have now been other Yellowjackets characters that they aren't the stars. They are
Mhm.
more so in the background. Most of them don't have speaking roles, but as these episodes have progressed, they've been more and more in these shots, and now maybe they have a couple lines to say some stuff. So that next season,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, these are the next ones that we're introducing here.
And it's going to
Yeah.
persist because what we saw at the very beginning of episode 1, that feels like second winter. Timeline wise, they are here across 2 winters. Like I said, clearly we must be getting towards spring. I don't know how close to spring we are. Maybe Javi is the last person who has to be eaten before fauna starts coming back into the area and they are able to hunt and eat in other ways again. So we don't know how much is left in the final episode, if there will be any sort of time jump in season 3, what season and weather and conditions that might see. But you can imagine maybe like season 4 is like it's winter again. Now we start getting in the real ritual stuff. Now we see the pit girl.
Yeah. Who knows?
So some of these other characters have to persist at least that long.
But that's also like we don't know when the girl. I assume that's winter number 2 for them,
Yes.
but we don't know exactly when that took place. So that could be early spring. But it was just like I don't know, but yeah. So let's jump in here. I already mentioned that episode 7, we start with a different version of the intro song. This one's a little more digital, and it's glitchy, which fits along, which fits in with those like VHS style glitch transitions that they've been playing with a lot in this show, which is again why I'm like, is there a deeper meaning behind this? Like, we've talked about Fringe on the show, and that they had different versions of the intro animatic depending on what universe they were in, and so we kind of knew what kind of story they were gonna get based on that. And like, it might depend on, does this song come back at a later date? Can we find similarities between the two thing? Who knows?
Maybe. I don't know if they're doing that now, but I can't imagine they might do that in the future.
Maybe. Let's jump right in with Coach, because Coach is having another one of his like potential alternate reality disassociation visions, and this one is in the cabin that the girls are in, but it's like a much nicer version of that. So I think what you saw in the ones from last time was correct, because you had said like, I think that might be the same cabin.
I'm not sure if there's like a bleed where the things are morphing. Last time we talked, I thought that when he was having that like charades party with his boyfriend and those 2 other guys, it seemed like that was a trip to a cabin. Like they were separately in a parallel cabin. But now I am wondering, is there starting to be this bleed and this morph where maybe that's like the setting is stuck? He can imagine his boyfriend being there, but he can't change the setting of the cabin anymore.
Or even like the ways in which he is dissociating of like, I don't want to be here, get me somewhere else.
Yes.
Versus like, I need my boyfriend here now with
Paul.
Me. Yeah.
I remembered his name. It's Paul.
Yeah. I'm just wondering though, if that's the kind of like disassociating he's doing in that. But he's in a rough spot. He at one point steps out of the cabin screaming for Paul, and everyone's just like, "What are you doing, dude?" He's like, "I'm fine. I'm okay." And again, he's framed with the antlers right there, which is a recurring theme. I think we used to think like, "Oh, that signifies the antler queen or whoever." Maybe not now.
I want to know how many different roles they get into. Like, there's Antler Princess, Antler Regent, Antler Duchess,
the Antler Prime Minister, the Antler Secretary of State. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he ends up down the road here, just kind of he goes back to the cliff that Crystal fell off of, and he's thinking about ending his life. And Misty catches him. Do you have anything that you want to say about Coach specifically before I move on to Misty here?
I think the way she reacts to this is interesting. She's really desperate to stop him. And she tries all these ploys, like, whenever they come rescue us, I'm going to tell them you got Shauna pregnant. You tried to get all of us pregnant. Like you've been abusive. Like she tries to appeal to
with him.
She's trying a lot of different tactics. She's like, no, we love you. We need you. You need to live for these reasons. You need to get out. If you're not here to protect your legacy, I'm going to destroy your legacy. She says, I'm going to tell everybody you're gay, which I don't think is her shaming him, but I think it's her trying to use something that she suspects he may feel ashamed of within himself. She's like, I have to try everything to get him to not step off that ledge.
Yeah, in watching that, I couldn't remember if she knew that he was gay or not. But there is that one scene where
in Doom
he does
Coming,
flat
yeah.
out
Which,
tell her, yeah.
I think this is timed really well because that was an important subplot, Misty's crush on Coach in season 1 that hasn't been a part of season 2. And it was just when I was thinking, right, are they ever going to bring that up again? Not that I think there's going to be really further developments, but just, is it going to be mentioned? Right when it comes up again, right when I'm wondering about it is when it becomes relevant again. I thought that was nice timing, that the show's kind of on pace, maybe with audience expectations. Maybe just mine.
It is also like she weaponizes it in a way that is like she knows he's not out. Whether they had that conversation in private or not, we don't know. But I think also just being set in the 90s, like being out and gay was maybe a little bit of a tougher thing. I don't know exactly, but that's kind of what I imagine. Like that, just I mean, well, you know, nowadays with all of the legislation that's happening and stuff like that, it might give it a run for its money. But like she weaponizes it in a way that is the final, like, I'm dropping a bomb here. Like, I will tell them you're gay.
Yeah, this is the last card I can think of to play.
Yeah,
until...
And yeah, she then like switches up tactics when she realizes that won't work, and she breaks down about the loss of the baby and how much that has affected her, and just like we need you here, like if nothing else, just for support, like.
Yeah, or I think she says it more personally, like, I couldn't deliver the baby the way everybody was counting on me to do. She's like, I can't lose anybody else. Yeah. And who knows how much of that was sincere and how much of that was a tactic.
Yeah. So, which again, this is the thing is like, Coach is obviously there and around them. How much has he heard the girls talking so far about Crystal and what's happening there? So I'm even wondering if he's like in his mind when she says, I don't want to lose anyone else. I know that can still work for just one person, but I'm wondering if he's then getting the idea of like, oh shit, I wonder if this was her. Like he might not know exactly, but like he's just like, I wonder if this
something
was her.
To do with it.
But speaking of Misty, I was just gonna say that she is continuing her role as bad actor, and organizes a search party for Crystal. The girls split up looking for her. She fakes just this is a lot. I'm too emotional. I can't do this right now. And while the girls dismiss her, she goes to the spot that Crystal should be at, and she's not there. Which is wild.
That's mysterious, and we don't know if that is because like the blizzard was coming down. I don't know if Misty did like a full like check for pulse and breath, or if it's just she must be dead. If she isn't now, because Snow will get her. Like
the chest
right, yes,
with the,
yes.
But
so we don't know if that's some sort of a medical mishap. Like she came back after all. She got out of the snow. When did this happen?
Did she find Kate? Or is there someone else out there? Did someone else from the cabin find her and is now manipulating things? I
don't think it's another one of the girls. That might be a little bit too advanced. I don't think they're there yet, that there's that severe of factions where somebody is hiding an entire other person.
Maybe,
but there is the question of, who knows where we're going to get to. I just don't think that's now. But is there another like living person out there who took her, or is it the sort of whatever like the lady in the woods is that like Javi saw? How much of a physical or amorphous, metaphysical, magical presence that is.
Yeah. Maybe because we've had our theory on Javi disproven that, like, oh, we think Javi's dead, and then the Javi that returns is maybe not Javi.
Mm.
And maybe what we thought is happening to Javi has now happened to Crystal, is that she did die, but there is something that maybe reanimated her, or like possessed her in the moment of death, and she got up and walked away and did who knows what. But yeah, I guess to add on that, Mari's starting to suspect Misty of having killed Crystal. She has no proof, but is just like, something's not adding up here, you guys. But yeah, Misty ends up talking Coach down. Let's see. That almost makes him jump, but he's blah 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 blah. Okay. Yeah. So I think in the younger timeline, in the 90s timeline, in episode 7, we also have Shauna trying to talk to Jackie once again here, and Jackie's not there. They've eaten her, right? So
yeah,
but there is not this like this spiritual connection or whatever it might be. Like, she's not appearing there, and so Shauna is breaking down, and is having a real rough time, especially after the loss of her child.
I do like whenever we see a vision or a hallucination of Jackie or Laura Lee again. I do kind of miss them.
Yeah. I like that is a way to like re-include them in the show.
Yeah.
And have them there. I like that a lot. Let's see here. Anything else young? So at the end of this episode, young Shauna gets triggered by Misty humming a song. And she punches Misty, but this is when Lottie steps up and is like, hey, I know you have a lot of anger right now, baby, and basically says, like, take it out on me instead.
Yes.
And so, that is what happens. Shauna just beats the living pulp out of her.
This is why. And it's the...
I was just gonna say, like, I'm taking my notes as I'm watching this, and I wrote down here, she beats Lottie to two, and I stopped, and I was like, I'll put to a pulp, but what if Lottie dies here? And that's a twist, and like again, I'm pulling on that, like, but what if one of these characters is not really who they say they are, right? So I was like, what if Lottie dies here somehow? So I was sitting here just like, whoa, what is going on? What is happening? But yeah, thankfully, Lottie lives.
It is the juxtaposition here that really gets to me. It's like the depths of the pain they've been through, and almost suspiciously high heights when we've got the 6 adult women together at the wellness center, and they're bonding with each other in a way that, like I said, seems almost suspicious. They're like, we're putting it behind ourselves. We're having a girls' night. We're drinking. We're going to dance to lightning crashes, not a happy song. When the song comes on the radio and somebody's like, oh, I love this. I'm like, one of the saddest songs you'd ever hear? You love it? You're like, let's all dance. Let's all dance to lightning crashes. Let's go outside and spin in the snow.
So you're more familiar with that song than me. I don't recognize that song. What is that song about? Do you know?
Lightning crashes. Old mother cries. Placenta drops to a floor. I've heard it a lot. It used to play on my local radio station in that like late 90s, early 2000s era.
So there is something about like a baby that doesn't survive.
Or like there's some sort of like, I don't know. There's some sort of birth, or it's like, no, baby opens its eyes. Pale blue covered eyes. So I don't know if it's like there's a birth and then also like a death at the same time. I didn't look up the lyrics. I don't know them by heart.
Okay, yeah. I was just wondering because I not recognizing that song, I recognized it in the sense that in the modern day timeline they're listening to
Yeah.
it, and then that's the same song that Misty is humming. But Shauna snaps when she hears that song, and I was just like, I don't recognize that song. I don't know if that had some kind of significance to her and Jackie, or to like, was it on the radio while she was having sex with Jeff that one night? Like she got right.
Not a sexual song.
Well, no, not that it would be a sexual song, but just like, why does that song cause her to snap? And I was just not familiar with it. So
wasn't that, well, maybe she just recognizes it as a song that involves birth imagery, or maybe
that might be it.
Was it part of her like slip into the alternate universe where the baby is alive? Did she like hear like the girls were like humming that or something, or singing
I don't think
it
they
in
were humming
there?
that song. I don't think so. But I don't recognize the song, so I'm not like, oh, it's the same tune. But it was just like, oh, that's
I'd have to watch it again
of the thing, right? Yeah. So I was just, I felt like I was missing something in that scene. It seemed like that song has more significance than I recognized.
I thought it might have been something she dreamt about, which then gives her the suspicion again, like, what I experienced real? Like, are you guys lying to me, or just Misty of all the songs? That one's really insensitive. Why does it have to be that? Do you not know what we've all just been through?
It could also just be that like she's so angry and so pissed off that any just little small thing that she's not right.
Of course.
It may have been someone else, but it just happened to be Misty, and it just happened to be that song, right? We'll get to the modern day timeline in just a sec, but before we recorded this, you and I recorded a podcast on the 1953 French movie The Wages of Fear. Which I, at the time of watching that and watching Yellowjackets, I didn't think of it, but the ending of that movie very much parallels what is happening here at the end of episode 7, where, like you said, there's the older, like modern day women that are celebrating, they're dancing, they're laughing, they're drinking, they're happy, right? And it's juxtaposed. They cut back and forth between that and Shauna just beating the shit out of Lottie. And it's just this hyper violent act, which is what happens in The Wages of Fear.
Yeah.
Great movie. Go check it out. But there's this scene of like the townsfolk happy and dancing, and it's juxtaposed with the main character with just this kind of reckless abandon, and then crashing to his death in this like violent car accident. And I just thought like, whoa, that was wild.
And those are two events that are parallel in time. This is a before and an after. And the idea that these girls went through that, did it or had it happen to them, or just witnessed it and let it happen. And then years later, they're like, let's all dance together in the snow that cursed us once. Like, it's such an odd feeling to watch those two things happening at the same time. But it's like that's the only way they can get by, is to bury stuff like that deep.
Yeah.
Because it's like you were looking at these women in the modern time, and it's like that never happened to them at all. Maybe because that's how they just have to act. They just have to live. They have to think like that. And at the beginning of season 1, there's been a lot of talk about how, like, when they're being blackmailed in the blackmail arc, they're like, people would not accept what it is we did out there. And I was watching it thinking, I know that people are imagining you ate each other out there. And I can't imagine that there would be, for the circumstances you were in, stuck out. If like there's like a team of people who survive in the wilderness for 19 months and not all of them make it out, and they're very secretive about what happens, I can imagine that in the general public, they can extrapolate, they probably ate people. But I can also imagine that given the direness of those circumstances, people would also think, what else could they do? Would I hold that
mean,
against them? I don't know.
Like that's the thing. I feel like they pull an Oceanic 6 and just lie about who died and when they died and stuff like that. Like, oh, we were the only survivors of the crash, and because there's only however many actually survived, like, killing a deer or a bear would have lasted them longer. And
So you think they're lying and saying instead of like just the flight crew and a couple girls and Coach Martinez died in the crash, they're like, oh no, most of us died in the crash.
Most of them died in the crash. Some didn't survive the winter, maybe, but like, yeah, I think they know they went through this traumatic event, right? But they haven't spoken about it, so there has not been a hint of like, and man, like, we sure did have to eat some people, but we're not going to talk about that, right? Like,
but like this is the mindset I've been in, that if
there
they
might be
came
some
out
wild
and said
speculation or rumors out there on some citizen detective websites or something like that, right?
But we know stories of things like this happening, like the soccer team that crashed in the mountains, crashed in the Andes, had to eat each other. We know that story, and it's not a story we judge in any particular way. We are not angry at those people who survived. We can understand, we can empathize, or at least hold it in a space out of judgment, where maybe I wouldn't do that, but I don't know if I have any right to blame somebody who did do that in order to survive, Yeah. So like they've been protecting this with so much secrecy that I've been wondering, what else did they do that's worse than eating people? Because I feel like if somebody learns that you ate somebody in a 19-month survival scenario, maybe that reaction isn't that harsh. But this is when we were finally getting to things where I'm like, oh, this is what they're hiding. This sort of depravity that isn't as necessary for survival. Shauna just beating the heck out of Lottie. And there's a difference between somebody died from natural causes. They couldn't make it through the winter.
Okay, yeah.
We chose to eat them because that felt like the best way to honor them. That's what they would have wanted, and we needed to survive. There's a difference between that and we're going to watch Javi drown when we could save him.
Right.
That's the sort of thing. I'm like, now I know what you've been hiding. Yes.
We did it to survive versus we liked it. And encouraged it, right? I do. On the other, like, flip side of that, one of the things I spoke to last week was like, as much as I'm loving the mysteries, right, and trying to solve the, like, are there witches? Is there alternate realities? Is there this? Is there that? Like, I very much know that at the end of the day, I don't think this story is going to be about that. It is about the relationships between these girls as they grow up and as they become women and reconnect, right? It is about them getting over that trauma and stuff like that, in a way that I think they told you everything up front. Yeah, they became cannibals. Like, they're like, I don't necessarily think there is a worse thing that they did of like, what trumps cannibalism, right? Like, what card can they play that is like, oh my god, but they did that? It is just this. Yeah, we liked it. We didn't have to do that to survive. We chose to do that and liked it.
And we made, it wasn't our backs against the wall survival mechanism. We ritualized it. We worshipped this thing.
Yeah. And there are some aspects of, like, we do need to do this to eat and survive,
yes.
But that, like, yeah, because even with the time frame of how long they've been there already and how long they still have left to go, they can't be like, okay, well, Javi is gonna be next week's meal, but who's the week after that, right?
Yeah.
They still need to make it stretch, and like, Javi is gonna be this next month's meal. Hopefully, get a deer or some rabbit mixed in with that. But like, yeah, they still need to stretch it out and not do it so often.
Mm.
But yeah,
I do like that there is a slow build to where we see what we see in the very first scene of episode 1, where it starts with Jackie dies by accident. She is cooked by accident. We are driven by hunger to eat her. Everything just sort of falls into place. We have that.
literally, yeah.
And then, so it's an accident we couldn't have prevented. And then Javi is an accident that they could have prevented, but chose to be complacent for the sake
They
of
were
their survival.
already in the act of committing one that was not an
I,
accident, right?
yeah. But like, I like the ramp up to full on murder. I like that they
Yes.
haven't done it yet. Like, it's just been a pure accident and then an accident that could have been avoided, but they let proceed. And then it's
Yeah.
going to get to Pit Girl.
Indeed, indeed. So to catch up real quick on the modern day timeline, the women are now all at the camp. They start to get introduced. They have to give up all their cell phones, all that good stuff. And Lottie gives them some activities to do, some therapies, some like introductory, like here's what your activity will be. And none of them are really having a good time.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Ty has to like repaint a building with like a makeup brush.
Yeah.
It is just this dumb and they all recognize like right away, like, oh,
Yeah.
it's not I'm not actually going to get any kind of new wisdom out of me painting this building with a thing, like, but there are things that I am hiding and have walls built up around that I'm like just on the brink of exploding. And like I like the idea of like Shauna just sitting out there in the woods, just kind of mindlessly staring at the dirt with the goat tied up to just be like, well, if I tie you up here and just sit here all day, like people will think I did something. And then,
Yeah.
and then like when Misty finds her and the goat is gone, she's just like, ah, fuck. Like I'm 2 feet away. How did I not know it walked off? Right? Yeah, so they have stuff like that. Misty, I know you want to talk about Misty's experience in the sensory deprivation tank here. She goes full on musical tripping
Yes.
balls. A personification of Caligula. Her bird
Yeah,
is in there.
I love
Walter
that.
is in there. Yeah.
Yes, musical legend John Cameron Mitchell dressed as Caligula with like a weird beak nose. That's very fun, very Twin Peaksy. I liked
Yes.
getting that sort of real fantastical reach when these sort of breaks from reality we've been getting so far. The things that happen, like the sort of flash sideways alternate universe visions people are getting out in the woods, still feel believable. You buy them for a while. There's a particular one of these that you've been buying the whole time and never suspected that they pull out the rug out from under you on. But I like that in this, and then in that dream that Jeff has in episode 8 where Shauna has like electric knife hands. I like
Great.
that in this space they're like, here we're gonna go real silly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like that's the thing is like she has the most like transcending experience
Yes.
out of all of them, but when she emerges from that tank, she has not changed one bit. It's not transcendence in like,
Yeah.
oh, I had this vision and now I see things clear. It is that, but not in the way that like, oh, I see my mistake. It's I am stronger in my conviction that the girls need me. I am the person for this. I am a closer. I can get things done.
Yes.
Right? It's like she's just completely unhinged. She's a psycho. It's great. But yeah, none of that stuff is really working. At one point, Ty and Vivian have a heart-to-heart moment. They have another kiss, which they kind of immediately again go like, shit, I'm sorry. Like, we shouldn't be doing that. And this is where Vivian confesses that she has cancer and maybe only has months to live. And that's why she's kind of flippant about the
Yeah.
bills and stuff. Most of her money's probably already gone to medical stuff, but
Mm,
she just really doesn't care if the bank is like, "Hey, what's happening with the rent here? What's good going on?"
mm,
She's just like, "Well, I'm not gonna be around here much
yeah.
longer, so who cares?" Which is
Mm.
then maybe why she loves that super sad song at the end. She's just like,
Ah!
"Oh yes." Right.
Very cathartic.
Yeah.
This
Go
there's a
ahead,
neat tie
please.
to this with what she's saying in like the 96 timeline where she's like, because remember, she like almost burned in the plane before she got out. Like part of her
Yeah.
face was on fire. And then she gets attacked by the wolf. And then she's just been like starving along with everybody else. And she confesses to Ty, what am I alive for? I keep surviving, but I don't know what the purpose is. So to
Great
have her
question.
get out of all of this and then get cancer is tragic. But I also am like, what is the purpose on this? What is this going to turn into beyond the just initial tragedy of it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Because I think that is also part of her trauma that she needs to get over. Again, my theory is that this show is just about these women growing up and having to cope and learn to deal with this trauma and different ways they've tried to deal with that and failed, and some of them are still purpose driven to the point where it's reckless and psychotic,
Mm-hmm.
where other ones are just kind of lost in the void of just like, what's the purpose? I like
Mm-hmm.
I'm I just, yeah, or have retreated into their own, I don't know, mind state where they are still hallucinating stuff and don't realize they're hallucinating stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all have to deal with that. And I think once we finally get the girls together that night and they're drinking and stuff like that, like I really enjoyed that scene, seeing them happy.
Yeah.
I loved that.
I
And
I liked it, but I also felt uncertain. Like it's too happy.
we knew the shoe was going to drop eventually, especially
Yes.
as they're starting to catch up on all of this stuff,
Mm.
right? And all of that. Like we knew it was gonna go from happy to like, what the fuck is happening here?
Mm.
But it like it felt good, and that's what I want the ending of this show to be. I don't want it to be a
Mm.
tragic ending. I don't want it to be like I want there to be this like cathartic release where
Yes.
they are just joyful and happy that they are free from this stuff. I don't know exactly what that will look like. I don't know how many of them will survive. I think especially between these two episodes, I'm now starting to wonder who of the modern day timeline is going to survive.
This is a question I have. Do you think the survivors we have now are all of the survivors? Because we thought we might have had everybody in season 1, where it's just the main 4, and then Travis, who dies at the beginning, and then it's revealed no, Lottie's alive, and they never mentioned her. Van is alive, and they never mentioned her. Of course, they believe
I don't
Lottie
think so.
may be dead or institutionalized. I also think they are going to keep popping people up from time to time as needs serve, but I did think it was odd that they're like, wow, we're really all together without a mention of, except for Aquila. Has anybody seen Aquila in years? Do
Where's
you know what
Mari?
she's
Where's Pink
doing?
Hat
Right.
Girl, right?
Oh, where's Pink Hat Adult Woman?
Right? Yeah. Does she still have the hat? I don't know. But yeah, I really really enjoyed that scene a lot, and that scene of them being happy is the one that is cut back and forth between Shauna just beating the shit out of Lottie, and no one does anything to stop it. Right? They just sit there and watch, and it's
Because
not until
they
she leaves that they're just like, all right, go quick, like help her out, like.
and it's something Lottie agrees to. She was like, Shauna, you need to purge this anger. We need you back.
Yeah.
Go ahead and hit me. I agree to this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like she regrets it when we see her even in her sickened state in episode 8. And she does adult Lottie does hammer home the point again in episode 8. We have to give it blood. That's what it's always wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. So to kind of zoom things along here, I do want to also point out that when Shauna is handed the goat, they say the line, "The kid's care is intertwined with your own," and she's just like, "What
Yeah.
did you say?" Right? Like she's caught off guard with that. I just thought that was interesting. At one point, I almost thought that she implied that Callie was not her birth daughter, that they may have adopted her, but I think I read that scene wrong because
No,
after talking about it with my partner, I was like, okay, maybe that's not what she meant.
yeah. I
There.
think she's saying something which I do appreciate that she is saying out loud that we don't have to read into. Sometimes it's nice when a character does literalize and really drive the point home of, I had a baby. I believe the baby lived. The baby ultimately died. That's given me this quiet, deep within me distrust in reality, to where then when I
Yeah.
had another kid later, I like emotionally kind of held her at arm's length because I was uncertain if she's going to live or if she is actually real or if
Yeah.
I am being tricked again.
Yeah.
That's really sad.
That's rough. But then I guess the other big reveal here is Lottie. We get another scene of her at her therapist, just being like, I swear, like this whole thing has driven us together. Like it's obviously real. And then yeah, we get this like the rug pulled out from underneath us to reveal that Lottie's just kind of in her office. This
Yeah.
therapy place that we thought was real is not. It's just her office, and she is conversing with the Antler Queen, like or that like it like a vision of it.
Yes.
And yeah, and she finally realizes that, or something happens in the vision where it disappears and she finally realizes just like, oh shit, like none of this has been real. I may be farther along than I thought. Who knows? Yeah. And so that is another big reveal here. And then the last scene is that Jeff calls the camp and is like, hey, they found Adam's body, by the way.
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, oh shit.
I do like the fallout from that, and that there's enough going on in the show that you do forget about things like, right, Shauna never told anybody else that Jeff was the blackmailer, even though Jeff had some semblance of a noble purpose behind it. He wanted the money for the sake of paying off the debt associated with the family business so that Shauna and Callie would never be affected by that. You also totally forget about, right, Misty killed that journalist. She straight up killed a lady last season, remember?
Yep, indeed. So yeah, they all finally, this is when that happy moment between the adult girls just kind of falls apart and everyone is pissed and upset. Shauna's been using them and all of it, but they understand each other's pain in a weird way too, but they're all still just like, what the hell, you guys, right? Like, they're all dealing with that, and Van is obviously out of the loop. Like, she hasn't been involved in any of this. And at first they are kind of speaking in code to not really say exactly what happened. But Van catches on immediately, like, oh, you guys did this. Like, this is you. So what is happening here? And yeah, they start to argue about it a little bit outside, and some other of the cult members, campers, I'll call them campers. They kind of walk by, and Lottie's just like, maybe we don't talk about it out here in public. So she takes them into a much quieter, safer room and floats the idea that, hey, we were all brought back here for a purpose. It wants something again, and like, we need to give it one of us. And she pours a bunch of drinks. One of them is poison. She goes, you guys can mix them up. I'll pick last so we don't know whose is what, right? they don't ever drink it in episode
Yeah.
8. Here we don't get that far in that scene. I don't know if they will, or if something else will happen instead. But yeah, that is kind of what they've come to. And by the time we get that in episode 8, we're starting to get the girls kind of realizing that maybe they need to start doing something in the 90s timeline to save Lottie.
Yeah. Where
Lottie's
they're
in a
like,
bad way.
if she, yeah. Where they're like, there's no way she's going to fight off these injuries and heal if she's this hungry. Like, she truly needs to eat. And this is when they pull the deck of cards. Whoever pulls the queen is the one who's going to be sacrificed. It's Nat, which on one hand,
Was not
I
expecting
understand.
that.
Yeah. On one hand, I understand that they would keep it fair and everybody who is present is included. But also, I'm like, Nat is one of the 2 hunters you have. Nat is unquestionably much better at handling the rifle than anybody else. You wouldn't think our hunters should be exempt so that they can feed us in the future, but it's Nat. And I like when Sean is going.
They've gone full in, like, we give the wilderness what it wants, and that's how we live.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Shauna, this is where it starts. She puts Jackie's necklace on her as a symbol and then is going to slit her throat from behind. I like that Nat turns around like, if you're going to do this, you look me in the eye when you do this. Yeah. And also acknowledging Shauna kind of got us here by beating up Lottie. Not that eventually, like within a week, they wouldn't have needed to do this anyway if they continued to starve. Like at the beginning of the episode, somebody's like, I found a leather belt. Can we eat that? Which is straight up miserable.
Yeah.
But yeah, then Travis doesn't stand for it. Travis goes to attack her, and then Nat has to run out into the wilderness.
It's just, his realizations that he kind of still has feelings for her and wants to protect her and stuff like that. So he disrupts things. There's another scene where they're just like, run, right? And Nat takes off. This is where we get the scene from the opening credits of the girls with the big sticks and sword-looking things chasing her. We get a scene of Javi then coming to the rescue and being like, I know a place that they don't know about. And he starts to take her there. They run across the lake and the ice starts to shatter and Javi falls in. And she's trying to save him somehow. But
a really nice
Misty
echo of that.
Yeah.
It's a really nice echo of that Moose from earlier this season. And then Moose felt like it was like a whole complete idea. Like nothing was going to come out of that. Like that was a one-time episode. And I really like that there's this mirror to it later on.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that. But Misty is the one that then stops her from saving Javi and is like, look, if you save him, they'll still come after you.
Yeah.
Because you're so if you let him die, that saves you. And that's the thing. They all just kind of stop and stand around and just watch him drown, and you hear him like calling for help in the few moments that he can like get his mouth above water, and it's terrifying.
Yes.
And it sucks. Yeah. I was not expecting Javi's story to go that way so soon, right?
Yes.
I was expecting a bigger fallout of like, how did you survive? What is this mystery here? But yeah, that was a rough scene, man. that was hard. But I want to go back to the moment that they are picking the cards. Here's something that I thought was interesting. So I thought at first, maybe it was going to be Javi. And then if it wasn't Javi, it was going to be the pink hat girl. Because she was next. She started to have some speaking lines in this episode and stuff. Yeah. And that was the thing. I was like, who's pink hat girl? Like, who is this? What is happening here? And it wasn't her. But when she picks that card, they focus on the next card that's on top of the deck, which is the one that Nat picks. That card, the print on the back of that card is like smudged out and messed up. It's like worn off in a way that would be recognizable if it's just
Huh.
like the top card on the deck here. So I don't like the camera kind of lingered on that. Not enough where it
Mm.
was like, why are you suspiciously lingering on this for so long? But enough that it was just
Uh-huh.
like, that's smudged. Huh.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if the girls in season 3 or 4, if they get that far. I think at one point they said we plan it to be 5 seasons, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that's still the case. But if down the road, if that is part of some kind of like, is there some politicking going on or manipulation of the deck to make it look like someone's about to get that card and maybe not, or to think like, oh, I did get the card, but I didn't, right? Like it looked like that card is now recognizable. I would recognize
Mm.
that if that's next up.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's going to be a thing or not, but that's just something that went through my mind.
I
But
want to mention I
go
just want to
ahead,
mention
please.
that parallel to this, we have Coach going out into the woods. I
That's
like
what I
that
was
he
about to
gets
go
to be
mention. Yeah,
active, like physically active. Like it's nice to see him
right.
have this subplot. We've seen him not for a couple episodes, but at the beginning, like when Nat and Travis would go out and hunt, they've brought back sketches of, well, there's a tree line over here and it looks like this, and here's a big boulder. Like he's trying to
Mm-hmm.
map out the area. I'm really happy to see somebody being proactive like that. Like there's a lot, like they're so concerned with like day-to-day survival that there's not a lot of long-term figuring out the location they're in, and I do like to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he figures out that one of Javi's drawings could fit into this map, that maybe he can go find whatever this special tree is. Like that he winterizes his crutches, he goes out there, he finds it himself. Just nice. Just a nice episode for Coach.
Yeah, yeah. I like that a lot because Nat is the one that mentions that Javi has been going out to a specific tree and like
Mm.
bowing down and praying to it, which is creepy. Just in like just a thought all on its own, which continues to lend evidence to like is there some kind of force or entity he believes that saved him? Was there another person that is claiming their guy? Who knows? But yeah, he's going out to one of those weird trees. I bet you it's the one that was the hook that
Mm.
Ty and Van were talking about. The like, I bet there's one more right here that I don't think
Oh.
they ever went to go search for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was also near where they found him. It was in that area. So, yeah, Coach decides to investigate. He steals the drawings, start looking at them, goes out searching for that tree, in which he does, in fact, find a cave. But right as he finds this cave, here's the thing that I thought was wild. He sees the symbol. He sees the symbol, and it's not carved in a tree. It is naturally occurring in the leaves. The way the
Oh.
leaves are fitting together, it's naturally occurring. Like the sun
I
is
didn't
shining
realize that.
through the leaf. You get a real quick glimpse of it, like in the environment as he like looks up in the trees. And I was like, whoa, like that is like that's not something someone carved or
Yeah.
anything like that. That's I have no idea what that
I
means.
and we're
That's just holy
still
moly.
we are seeing more of the symbol, but we're no closer to finding out what is its meaning. Where was it created? It's such a complex symbol. Like,
Right.
what is it? What does it say?
Exactly. So yeah, he steps inside this thing and basically discovers this cave, this little small cave that would be big enough for like one, maybe two people. I guess we don't see a lot of it. So like I said at the start,
Yeah,
it
could
could
be
go
bigger.
back farther. It could, yeah, who knows exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of like little animal bones strewn about there. It looks like someone had lived there. So they haven't specified exactly, but I'm assuming that's the place where Javi was
Yes.
and survived, and that's where he was taking that one time. But We don't get anything more with that. It's just that Coach discovers it, and he's in that cave while they are all out hunting Nat. He has no idea what just happened and like
Yeah.
transpired.
He wouldn't stand for that. Who knows?
I don't know.
Speaking of eating things, we get the reveal. We see Akila playing with a little mouse in her pocket.
Yeah.
And then Ty's like, what are you doing? What are you doing with that thing? And she grabs it out of her hand and it's dead. It's like sort of dried out, this desiccated like little mouse husk. And which again, this is not one of the things that I was expecting was going to be like an alternate reality or hallucination or something. I was like, something's going to happen with this mouse, but I was never predicting that's what it was. She was imagining.
Right.
What a mundane thing to imagine. I found a little mouse. I believe it is alive.
Exactly.
Like the stakes aren't important enough for you to put that much. To really look at it or think about it that closely. She's got the little mouse husk. She's like continuing to carry around with her. And there's a scene where she considers eating it. Like she almost puts it in her mouth and then she's like, no, and puts it back in her pocket, which makes me wonder, is she going to hold out in the future and like refrain from eating somebody? Is there a scene where she's like she doesn't want to? Like maybe she was driven enough by hunger to want to eat Jackie, but maybe she doesn't have the same ferocity and like the lust for power that other characters have. Maybe she's going to hold off and be like, no, I'm not killing this person ritualistically to murder them. I want to hold off. I want to see if we can find a deer or something. Like, is she going to be eaten because she refuses to eat somebody else?
So on top of that, let's add the scene with Mari, because Mari once again is like, hey, do you guys hear that dripping?
Yes.
And finally, we get a second character to confirm it. Kind of. It's Van that speaks up and is like, yeah, I hear it too. But when she points at something, she points in a different direction from what like Mari thinks is the sound is coming from. And at one point, just discussing how hungry all the younger girls are, they refer to it as the hunger. Like that's a symptom of the hunger. And so
which is
they all seem to be like starving and maybe starting to hallucinate some things here and there. So that's why I was like, maybe Van is hearing a dripping. And maybe it's a real one. Maybe it's not, but it doesn't necessarily seem to be the same thing that Mari has heard multiple times throughout this season. And then we get a vision of her looking at the wall and like blood starts seeping through the cracks in the wood and just feeling that whole wall, and she panics and screams.
This is interesting that we've been seeing these different variations on. Again, what could, if you're looking at this with a very practical Dana Scully, everything is explained by science way, you can say, well, these are hunger and like trauma hallucinations. But like the things Coach has been through, the things Shauna has seen, like these do seem to be some sort of glimpse at an alternate universe. Sounds almost too sci-fi, but there's something to these. But there's not a real pattern to them yet, and like who experiences them, how they experience them, what it is, and whether it's good or bad. We've seen people imagine things that are better, like what if my baby lived instead it died? What if I never got on the plane and I was there with my boyfriend? What if this mouse was alive? But now we're also seeing bad ones, like the walls are bleeding. So we know what
they ate.
We have
the baby, right? Yeah,
right. We're starting to grasp what is happening, but we don't really know how. We don't know why. We don't like. There's not enough of a pattern yet for us to like draw many conclusions.
Yeah. So my thought on that is, again, we got 3 new named Yellowjackets members at the start of this season: Crystal, Mari, and Akila. And now we've kind of had like each thing that they've had, each like tick. I don't really know what to call it,
Uh,
but like Akila and her mouse, we had speculated like what if she's sharing food with this mouse and the
mm,
girls get upset at her for that? Like we could have eaten all that or eaten the mouse or something else.
yeah,
Um, like that could have been cause for the girls to kill her and
yeah,
her be the one that gets eaten first. Mari keeps hearing this dripping and it culminates in this vision of blood seeping through the walls. Like could her hallucinating and just kind of going crazy, like could that have been a thing for the girls to kill her of just like she's now unreliable, like that could have been a possibility. And then one that's a little bit more of a stretch, but I think Crystal's relationship with
mm,
Misty and
yeah,
just how kind of joyful that was and how much fun they were having too. It like just kind of led people to believe like, oh, something is gonna happen
yes,
there. And
yeah,
it was they red herring might be the right word, but like it was these potential clues that like one of these three is going to die
mm,
for one of these reasons, but we don't know exactly how yet. And once
mm,
Crystal died, then we kind of got this full. Well, the mouse has actually been dead the whole time. Mary is hearing this stuff, and now she's hallucinating, but so is kind of everyone else. So it kind of turned out to be nothing, but also not really
mm,
because she saw like she got this weird. She got the weirdest
yeah,
vision out of everyone here. So yeah, I just liked that it has now almost reset the playing board here of like
yeah,
I don't know who's next. It
yeah,
could be Coach. It could be someone else. We don't know if Mari will survive until next winter. Maybe
mm,
she does because we seem to think that she is Pit Girl, but also they're starting to introduce Pink Hat Girl a little bit more here, and there was another girl who had another
mm.
line in there, you know. So
But you also have to wonder. There's probably more ways that you can be taken out outside of
oh sure,
being eaten. Like maybe
absolutely,
a
yeah,
bear runs off with you. Maybe you drown. Maybe you get shot by accident. Like there's and then there
you
are ways that
starve.
you can die in which you can later be eaten. Yeah, but not everybody you can imagine is going to be a ritualistic murder for the point of
Sure, right.
cannibalism.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Um,
Uh
but yeah,
I I
it's kind of reset the playing field there.
yeah. I want to go back to the contemporary time to note something, which is when
Sure.
we see the news report about finding Adam's body on the TV. We see Walter at home. We haven't seen Walter for a couple episodes. And this is the first time we are seeing him outside of the context of outside of Misty's perception of him. So we
Sure.
get this objective view of Walter where he told her, I am independently wealthy. Like, I'm a millionaire because of an insurance settlement. Like, a piece of scaffolding fell and hit me or something. I sued them. I got big bucks. We see him in what is legitimately a rich man's house. So we
Yep.
don't know if the full story he's been telling is true, but I think we have more reason than not to believe what he has said. He's in this ritzy house. He is listening to Broadway, like he's doing a cat puzzle. Like he seems to be the man that he told Misty he was. It doesn't seem like how he was behaving around her was an act.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the first time that I have really felt like my which I knew was a little bit more of an out there theory, but like he seemed to know about Crystal, but then again, Crystal's body isn't there anymore. So what's happening with that? Right? Just the fact that he had all of these like he seemed to know something somehow. And that's why he involved himself with all of this stuff. But I don't know how true that is. I keep mentioning the fact like we haven't seen some of the parents or siblings of some of
Yes.
these characters that maybe didn't survive the crash or maybe ones who did, right? Like there could be other family members out there that are angry, are upset, are who knows what, right?
You know, like we find out that Travis and Javi's mom is behind something. Like there are these peripheral characters who either you've seen or that you can imagine, you know, like maybe somebody
Sure, yeah.
had, like you said, like a kid sibling. Like there's some, I do like that general concept of somebody tangentially related to one of the dead Yellowjackets has a grudge against the living ones.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, he's listening to what I assumed was from some other musical or something. I don't
It's
recognize it, but
It might be Sweeney Todd. I know it. I know. Oh, I've seen that in a musical, but I cannot place specifically which one it is.
I gotcha. But yeah,
I think it's Sweeney Todd.
His citizens detective website thing starts blowing up. Facebook starts blowing up about this news that they found Adam's body. And he ends up emailing the local police investigating it, being like, hey, I have some information that you're going to want to hear. We don't know if he's going to actually tell them the truth or if he's just going to twist the story and start covering for them. I think that is also an option for his character right now.
Yeah. The last thing we see him do is go into his closet and get a purple jacket to go to that wellness compound. Go find Misty.
I didn't even think about that. I just assumed that was maybe one of her jackets. Like, how did he get that? Like, I don't know, but you're right. It's a purple jacket that he pulls out there. So he's going to be on his way to go confront them or something. Maybe he gets next. He gets sacrificed.
Right. We we demand blood. We demand guest star Elijah Wood's blood.
Indeed.
Another really interesting thing to me in the modern timeline in episode 8 is when, after Jeff has the nightmare about Shauna knife hands, which made me realize when you can tell something's up, but you haven't realized yet it's a dream. You're wondering if maybe Shauna came home and the girls are right behind her and this is a trick and they're going to kill Jeff.
I clocked it right away. I was like, something's wrong here. How is she home?
Right.
I was like,
I also knew something's wrong, but I was like, I don't know specifically what thing is wrong until she just cuts him open. I'm like, this is a nightmare. But, which that made me realize I don't want to see Jeff die. I like Jeff. I want Jeff to be around. I think he adds a really interesting energy to the show.
Survive. I wouldn't mind him going to having him be the fall guy for Adam. Somehow Shauna ends up pinning this on him, or maybe even Walter is the one that helps them out and manipulates it, so he gets pinned with it. But having him be in jail kind of protects him from the rest of the nonsense that's happening, and just kind of at the end of the day just kind of walking out and having to deal with the knowledge of all of the stuff that has happened, and maybe even one day finding out everything that happened in the woods here.
See, this is what I want to get to next. He wakes up in the middle of the night. He finds that Callie is still awake, drinking a beer, and she asks him, am I like mom? Meaning, am I as ruthless as she is? And he's like, your mom went through a lot of stuff out there. And he tells her, like, she was pregnant when that plane went down. She had our baby out there. And this is fascinating to me that we talked in our season 1 reaction to all of season 1, because we got on the show late, that he had found her diaries. And you were saying he doesn't seem upset enough for what must have been in those diaries. So you're like, I bet Shauna planted fake diaries with simpler stories, and he read that. And I countered with
just like, how much did she keep up with journaling as things went on? So it might be like, we survived the plane crash, people died, like I had a baby, it didn't. Maybe she left out the bit about Jackie, right?
Right. We don't know what was in those, but the theory about he would be more upset, I countered with, we don't know specifically when he did that. He doesn't say, like, I just did this last week. We don't know how long it's been since he read whatever was in those diaries. I'm like, maybe he has had time to come to terms with this. And we have seen that Jeff is a truly loving character. And that might be the point of it at the end of the day.
Great.
It's not that Shauna was hiding something, just that he is that loyal to her. Like, she could say anything and he would still remain by her side in some form. And I do wonder, would she have told him at least about the baby? Because, like, he seems like he would have been a very involved and enthusiastic young father, would have wanted to go with her at all the doctor's appointments. And of course, the doctor would have said, now that I'm examining you, it looks like you have given birth before. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah,
like, Jeff would have had to have been around for that.
To have been known, especially with them being intimate after the crash. But having Jackie not survive, right, that's also something she has to tell him. And just, I think them kind of reconnecting, I feel like that would have come up at least, that like, hey, I was pregnant at the time. I didn't get a chance to tell you then, but the baby didn't survive.
Yeah. But there is the question, what did she tell him? What had to have been revealed to him? What did he read in a diary? And what exactly does he know? Because he just says, your mom had a baby out there. She had our baby. He doesn't, maybe he's thinking, it goes without saying that baby didn't survive. I don't have to spell that out for Callie. It hurts for me to say, and she can realize it on her own. Or maybe Shauna did tell him, maybe she swung around to believing, I think they ate my baby. And maybe that's what she told Jeff. And he's like, I cannot tell Callie something that dire. Maybe that's what Shauna told him, but he's not going to pass along that message. Like, there's some interesting ambiguity there. Again, it could go either way. It's a vagueness to the scene that I think is interesting.
Yeah, you're right. Like, even in the way that he tells Callie, like, that's your mom's burden to bear. And I guess a little bit of my own. You don't have to make that the way he says, that's her burden, seems also a little bit final, right? Like, that is the trauma that she went through.
And he doesn't say, now don't tell your mom I told you this, which is interesting. Maybe he's like, all right, if Shauna agreed to tell Callie everything, I feel like I can tell Callie this and I don't have to keep it a secret from Shauna that I let her in on this thing that happened in the woods. But I'm also really wondering if there's
between them two. It was just
it was nice to see a scene between those two separate from Shauna, even if Shauna is who they are discussing. And I'm wondering if there's any meaning to when Jeff says she had a baby out there and Callie says, I had a sister. And he's like, no, she had a boy. Does it mean anything that she immediately presumed a sister? Like, she doesn't ask, like, I had a sister, I had a brother. Oh, you would have had a brother. Like, she just guesses. She just flat out assumes sister. And I don't know if that means anything or not.
I don't know.
Because it is odd that she presumes one thing instead of asking.
Yeah. Who knows? Let's see here. We do get Kevin Tan coming to Jeff and Shauna's with a search warrant in the modern day timeline. Mr. Douche Cop himself has it out with Callie as she is recording him, right? And then they start to show Jeff the pictures of Adam's body. And it's a little much for him to take, and he just wants to get himself out of this situation, right? He's struggling with all of that stuff. He's still trying to remain loyal and not say anything, But man,
I think it is a struggle with, like, I know, looking at how this body was taken apart, that Shauna or any of her teammates would have had the butchering knowledge to do something like that. And I think he's just trying to play it casual and not hint at anything like that. I think he's struggling to remain as innocent as possible.
Yeah. But yeah, he's just like, he's kind of disgusted by the whole thing there. Let's see. We already talked about the ritual that's happening there. Uh, I feel like we've covered
I think
most of
so.
it. Ty has a little moment in the 90s timeline in the cabin where she sees her other self,
Oh,
both in the
yes.
mirror and then standing next to her as she looks away
Uh,
from the mirror. But that's also a hallucination because it turns out to be. It turns out to be Van
there when she
standing there.
looks,
So,
she's like looking through the window, and it's a window that has like individual panes and like a little wood border that's
split,
like in a
yeah.
grid. Yeah. She sees two, and one of them, I wondered for a second, is one of these meant to be like her actual reflection, the true
That's what
Ty?
I read that as. Yeah.
Oh, I wondered for a second, how do we know there's not another one? A third alter.
Absolutely. There absolutely could be.
I don't know if there is,
Um,
but just a realization that we don't necessarily have evidence that there isn't.
I just took it out. You know, like when you have a mirror that's bent and you can like look in it and you're
Yeah.
in both of the reflections,
Yeah.
right? There was one that was following her movements that was like
Okay.
mirroring that, and then there
Okay.
was the one that was had the Kubrick stare and the strange
Yes.
smile, right? Um,
Man.
Yeah, so I mean, like they all are kind of seeing things and succumbing to like we need food, like we just need to eat and survive here. So I have a
Yeah.
final question here.
Okay.
Predictions on the finale. What do you think? Is there anything that you think is gonna happen? Questions you still want answered?
There are two things I know are still ahead of us. We haven't heard that Florence and the Machine cover of Just a Girl. And I read that Melanie Linsky's husband, Jason Ritter, is supposed to make an appearance in in this season.
Oh,
And unless he was just doing a voice, unless it was a blink and you missed it, we haven't met him yet.
I don't
Like I
know
said,
what
I
his
haven't
actor
done
looks like.
I I don't know what you would have seen him in, but he's the voice of Dipper Pines, so I know you've heard him before.
Okay,
Uh,
interesting.
so like I said, I have not watched like a dedicated breakdown of every episode. Maybe he's already been in it in a small way that I just missed, but I've been watching out for him. So that might be in the finale. So we have these two things to look forward to. Now it does seem like Walter could be killed. Walter could be the sacrifice.
Yeah,
And
that could be a thing.
in the modern time, and in the 96 timeline, I do wonder if there is going to be a division. Like, what is the fallout of Coach finding that little hot spot under the tree? How many people can go there? Are there more? Are we going to see people splitting up into multiple camps?
Yeah.
Not just like the metaphorical factions, but like literally entirely separated physical groups of people.
Yeah. I'm now wondering if that is even going to happen. I think in season 1 that felt a lot more true, that there would be factions and sides of like we're the ones who won't eat people, or we're the ones who don't believe in the spirit of the forest or whatever dark entity this is. When they do the ritual to hunt down Nat, like they're all in on it. Like there's no one that objects. There is no one that
Yeah,
says, "Guys,
nobody
this
we
may not
see.
be
Yeah.
like is there a different way we can?" Yeah, it's just they're all in it. So I don't know if there will be as much of a fallout as we thought there was. I think like we kind of speculated this is a thing. The thing they are ashamed of is the fact that they liked it. They all went
Yeah.
along with this eventually and believed it, and yeah, they're trying to forget that or have repressed it so much that they're not even sure if that was real. I think that's one of the things I'm walking away from these two episodes, especially with how much people have been hallucinating, how much even in the present day stuff of them just kind of repressing their memories. They did talk about at one point like it's kind of hazy exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
while there is no narrator on this show, I'm wondering how much of the 90s timeline is actually real. Like, I wonder if
Yes,
that's a thing.
especially now that this concept of the hallucinations, whatever, we are still determining what are these. Are
Sure,
these
yeah.
purely mental? Are these physical? How do we
Is it magic?
categorize these?
Is it a hex, a
Right.
curse? Yeah.
I just keep wanting to call them Flash Sideways, Lost
Sure, yeah,
style.
yeah, yeah.
So now that we've had these introduced, it does make you wonder about things we've seen prior to this. And was there any circumstance where we could imagine that would have happened then? Did we see something that felt weird prior to a situation where like somebody is starving or like on their deathbed or something? Are we going to go back to season 1 and think, no, something's off about that? I think that was one of these. I think this is one of these Flash Sidewayses.
Yeah, that could be interesting for sure. Man, I want to see more of Walter's character, despite I like his fate
Yeah,
starting
I
to
do like
come
him.
into question. I think he'd make a great antagonist in the modern day time. We've
Mhm.
already kind of had Kevin, even though he's not really like he just in the sense that he is a police officer. He is
Yes,
trying to
he seems all right as a
arrest. Yeah,
man, yeah, but he just represents
but
an
man,
antagonistic
this
force, yeah.
force that is like equal to Misty and potentially like how psychotic or driven he
Yeah,
might
I
be
do like that.
is just man for them to play against him like I think would be great. But
And I
also
think I just want to
just
say, I think
to
the modern timeline could use something to kind of spice it up a little bit. The modern
sure.
timeline has never been as compelling to me as the past timeline.
Hmm.
I would like, I like the energy
That
Walter
makes sense.
brings. You're right. I think he could do that, do those plot lines a service if he remained around.
at at the same time, like I said, with that scene where we got to see the girls just happy and drinking and
Yeah.
singing, and like I want there to be this cathartic release at the end of this show, and so
Mm.
yeah, I would like Misty to get some kind of like
Yes.
happy ending where she can reconcile with that and connect with Walter in a way that is not harmful, right? And is a
Hmm.
good relationship for her,
Yes.
and she gets that feeling of being needed and wanted in a way that is not like, well, now I have to go murder someone or chop some guy's leg off or kill
Yeah.
someone or hold someone hostage, right? I want stuff like that to happen in the show, but we don't necessarily need that right away. So I wonder if it is going to be almost this like, will he, won't he, for is he going to turn them in? Is he going to not? Like, what's happening exactly with that? Because I think he does have genuine feelings for Misty.
I think so. Yeah.
So we'll see. But he could also be dead very soon here.
Hmm. Yeah.
So who knows? I think also with the other campers, I wonder. I don't remember her name, but that
Oh,
the
yes.
actress that yeah, I'm wondering if one of them is gonna stumble into something and
Right.
just
It
be
could be her.
terrified. Yeah, like
I
she could
forget
end up
about her.
getting
Like
murdered
Nat's
or
friend.
eaten.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. Um, man, like yeah, that's the, like again, I want the show to be about them like learning to get over their trauma and stuff like that. So I don't want to see like a modern day timeline character get sacrificed and eaten one more time. But like,
I don't know if they
also
need
that'd
to
be real
eat
good.
people anymore. That
Sure,
would
yeah,
that hasn't been brought up. Like the force, like the force of the woods. Like Lottie has said, it needs blood, but we don't know specifically what that means. They ate for survival in the woods.
do they
If
need to
they
do
don't
that now?
need,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
if they don't need to, would they again? That is an interesting question.
That
I
might
do
be
like the
something they ask
parallel.
themselves, right? Like, if
Maybe,
Adam's
yeah.
body was found, do we eat this one? Right? I
I
don't know.
do. I do like the parallel that if episode 8 ended with Nat choosing to let Javi die so that she could live, if that could be how episode 9 ends. Her friend from the wellness community, she lets her be a sacrifice so that she may live. That's a nice
Mm,
back-to-back little echo right there. So Oh
Or
no.
even the opposite, where she gets to save someone, right?
Oh
And has
yeah,
like,
yeah.
again, that's the cathartic moment of
Mhm.
someone's life is in danger, and she can do something to help them, and pulls them out, right? Like that, that might be something that helps her heal and
Or
move
maybe she
on.
chooses like somebody else. Like Walter lives, Jeff lives, this girl dies. I wish I remembered her name.
Yeah. Man, finale next week though. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
I'm super stoked. So yeah, we will be back next week with our thoughts on the finale. And I guess whatever other questions remain at the end of season 2. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. So be on the lookout for that down the road.
Mhm.
Melissa, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at WilkyWit. That's WilkyWit. And listen to my other podcast, Saturday Morning Obscurities, for more 90s vibes.
There you go. If you guys want to follow me, I am at Yo Kyle Springer on Twitter. And if you'd like to stay up to date with all of the stuff that we do here at The Whatnots, we are at The Whatnots on Twitter. So please go like, share, and subscribe. You guys know the deal with all of that good stuff. If you're watching this on YouTube, we got plenty of other videos right over there. We recently did a spoiler cast on Fast 10 that you guys might want to check out. That has been it. This is number 118 of the Reactor Core. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.